Most franchisors, when you send an inquiry, whether you work with a consultant or not, are going to, get some basic information from you. But let's make the assumption that you've qualified to go to the next step with them. The next step is for them to send you out a franchise packet and what's called an FDD. It used to be called an IFLC, now it's a franchise disclosure document. If anybody ever has insomnia, all you have to do is request an FDD and it's the world's greatest cure for insomnia. They're typically about 200 to 300 pages, full of great legal stuff and where to fors and here to is and all that stuff. But every franchise disclosure document is exactly the same. There's 23 items in every one. It's a very regulated business. The franchise industry is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So every franchisor is required to produce an FDD. And what's in there, I'll show you in just a second. So you'll require to sign a receipt. I've got this, I've got my package. There's a 14-day waiting period that's done for consumer protection laws. So if I got my package today, I e-signed for it. I couldn't buy one of those for 14 days if I wanted to. I could send them cash, gold, airplanes, anything. They will not sell it. They do that for consumer protection because 20 years ago in the franchise business, there were some more aggressive people that would pray and just, bang, you need to sign this down. Territory is going to be sold tomorrow, you need to do this act today, and not allowed to do it. So you get a 14-day waiting period after the receipt of the FDD. You'll not get the chance to speak in depth. You usually have a conversation, an hour, hour and a half with an initial interview with the franchise development folks. In that FDD is going to be a list of every one of that franchisor's franchisees in the United States. So every franchisor in their FDD is going to give you here's the list. Here's everybody that we have. This is our current list of franchise owners. It's California, Maine, New York, Chicago, wherever you go. We will also, at that point in time, encourage everybody to make as many franchisee interviews as you possibly can. This is where people fall down in franchising. One of my best friends, Brian, bought a franchise about 4 years ago without telling me. He paid $275,000 in cash that he probably should have never spent. And he's really struggling now. And now he's asking me for help afterwards. He called me about a year ago and I said, I have an embarrassing tale to tell you. I said, well, why did you buy that franchise? I know this franchise and I don't recommend them. And I said, why did you buy it? I said, well, the vice president of sales came out. He flew into New York just to see me. And we went out to dinner that night, and he just seemed so nice. And boy, it just sounded great. Next thing you know, we were signing franchise documents and writing checks. And he's struggling. And he's really having a hard time. And it was because he didn't do this. If he had made 20 or 25 calls to other franchisees around the country, he would have heard Brian's story in San Diego. He would have heard Brian's story in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He would have heard Brian's story someplace else. So any of the franchisors that I work with, I know they're going to validate well. Why would I ever send you to a franchisor where you're going to hear lousy things about? So these are things where you can do your own research on, but that's where you get most of the detail. And franchisors, most of the better franchisors are going to encourage you to do that. They want you to make validation calls. Sometimes they'll give you their list of 10 or 12. I said, take those, but call 10 more. So, and you'll ask them, how long did it take you to cash flow? What's your labor costs? What were your gross sales last year? And they'll tell you most of it. They're not going to be, because they know you're going to be looking at joining them. They don't want you to make the same mistake they did, or they want you to be part of their team. So there's nothing in it for them at all, but they want to be good participants in most cases. But that's where you get most of the information about the franchisor is through the validation process, which is down here. From there, that usually takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. People, you'll leave messages, call them back, you'll make 50 to talk to 25 people. You'll usually get on with the second interview with the franchisee. You've got all your documents now. You can consult with an attorney or accountant. I'm always fuzzy on that because you can't change anything in the documents. Well, I'm going to start lining out clauses in the franchise agreement. You can't. There's no room for negotiation in a franchise agreement. Because every franchisee must sign the same document. If you cross out a T and send it back with your signature on it, send it back with your check. It has to, everybody has to sign the same document. From there, you go to you do your discovery day. You visit the franchise headquarters. That's what that's all about. If you've gone through all of this, done all of your validation, gone through the FDD review and your interviews, and visit the franchise headquarters, met everybody, you usually have enough information to make a buying decision. 90% of the people that go out to a discovery day come back with a go, no-go decision. Most of the time they buy. If they've gone that far, most of the time they're pretty comfortable with the concept. You enter into a franchise agreement. They will, in most cases, help you with, if you're buying a brick and mortar franchise, they'll send their real estate team in. They'll typically come in for a week. They'll do all of their homework before, go through the site selection process, obtain your real estate, do your initial training, the construction, in-store training, open for business, ongoing support. So that's basically the process, and again, it can take anywhere from 2 months to 2 years, depending on how fast you want to go. What we see now is the real estate component is really becoming a challenge in some markets. Some of the more established franchisors are sold out, or they become a little bit overbuilt. So getting real estate for some of them is hard. A lot of times they're actually sold out. So that's just another slide of the same thing. That's basically the 4 steps without all the other stuff. I won't bore you with all this, but this is what's in a franchise disclosure document. What you really want to pay attention to, and you will get a copy of all these slides too. Everybody can sign it. Number 6 is where you're going to see your royalties, your marketing fund. Any costs or fees are going to be in item 6. Okay, so that's where you'll see your royalties and all that. The other important parts are item 19, which is probably the most important place in an FDD. About 65% of franchisors will publish their financial data about the performance of their franchisees. And what you'll see in there, here's our top 25% performing stores, here's our middle 50, here's our bottom 25% performing stores. Here's our average cost of labor, here's our average cost of goods sold. And they'll give you all of the financial metrics based across their footprint. So you'll have lots of data usually in the FDD if the franchisor chooses to put their financial data in there. Not everybody does. Well, why wouldn't the franchisor do that? They may not have it yet. They may be a 3 or 4 year old franchisor and may not have enough data to collaborate and put it in there. Sometimes I think they do it because they've got crappy numbers. Why would you publish something that's probably not great? If there is a franchisor that does not publish their financials in the item 19, it doesn't mean they're a bad franchisor. It just means we need to find out through conversations with the owners of the franchisor and through the validation calls with the franchisees. You can get the data. Sometimes they choose